So we're trialling a new bumper today. The other one's about at it. We had the crash at Croft last year, and I'm just trying to get something that will work with the splitter a bit better. This is really flat on the bottom, and it's actually quite flat in this angle as well. However, I'm really not sure with a few things. The bumper support that I want to make will actually be across right here, across the front, just about in this gap all the way across. So there's going to be that in the way. However, just below it, you can see I could drill some holes or make something to flow the air up. I really don't know. So this is the second bumper. This is quite similar to the top half of the original and the bottom half of that secondary one. It's not as deep. The whole bumper is not as deep, and but it does come quite low. I don't know, we'll see. Original bumper. Again, where you see the indicators and that top row of holes, that's where the bar will be sat. There is going to be a bar, there's no way about that. They're all very similar depths when it comes to the splitter, because that's got a massive fucking rubber on the bottom. But the weight difference between that and those, that is a lot heavier, a lot heavier. I'm just not sure. Really not sure. I like the red one, I think, the most. So after we've cut off, there's some tab. There was a tab here and this big kind of strengthening bar for the tow rope point that was welded on here, this box section. I've now gone and traced around these both sides, so we can start making a plate that fits over this, that's welded on, but it's going to have 4 holes for the captive nuts to sit behind. So they'll be welded on from behind, and then the plate will go on there and it'll sit there. And the idea is that the crash bar just bolts to this plate. So the crash bar won't be welded to this plate. It'll be welded to a plate that sits on top, that's bolted on with 4 M8 bolts. And this will all be nice and tidy. So this is the driver's side one. Obviously it's going to sit like that. However, I've had to mark the positions where the bar's going to sit, and I need to make sure that the captive nuts, obviously when they're drilled, they don't interfere with the edge of the seam, and they're not going to interfere with where I want the bar. Not that it matters, however, the bar obviously sits there, and that's the outer circumference of the bar. I know that I'm not going to have any interference from the bolts. Again, it's going to sit like that on the car, and the bolts will be on this side. This is the passenger side. This is a lot easier, and again, this is the actual side. So the bolts will be on the back, and this is the front. So again, we just templated them, and what I've done is I've just drawn like a lip around the edge, and that's the lip on the front of the flange at the front of the car, and I'm just going to drill every so often through around here, just so I can spot weld this on, and then I can seam weld around it afterwards. Just because if it ever comes into a crash, this is going to get a lot of force pushed against it through the crash bar, and I don't want it just tearing off these, you know, the quite weak seams, and it'll be spotted on. It's just adding that extra bit of strength. So I'll get them done in a minute. Let me show you the crash bar. Excuse the mess, but there she is. So she's all bent up. You will have seen from the pictures. If not, have a look at the Instagram. Fits into the red bumper the best. And we've chosen the red bumper because, one, it's the lightest out of the 3, and secondly, it's the smoothest and the flattest on the bottom to allow a splitter to take place. So again, this will be joined with little off stands off the front onto here, I've just got to measure that out to the bumper. But again, that's quite easy to do because obviously we can access from this side once the bumper's semi-attached, and then just measure the distance that we need. So it shouldn't take too long to get on. I am going to notch it and weld it round, obviously on this bar, better, like a proper roll cage would be. And we're going to look in where it comes down here, bring it to just before these, and we're going to tie it into this kind of bar as well. So I've got this 2mm mild steel flat plate here, and I'm just going to create these out of that. Oh, it fits beautifully, look. Right up to against the top edge. And we'll get that out of it and that out of it. Get those cut, get the holes drilled, get the nuts welded on the back. I've got them as well. And yeah, just crack on really. Hey, my spotty dog. I've left a little bit on some edges because once I've got the spot welds in, especially around this bit and this bit, I can shave them back and then just seam weld the side just nicely. This is going to get seam welded anyway because there's not enough material to spot weld. So yeah, so all I've got to do now is transfer these hills where I want them. Obviously they're on the wrong fucking side, so I'm just going to punch them through and just mark them up. Yes, I should really, before I do that, make another template of these, I suppose, and do them together. Probably a better idea if I punch all of the holes together. So I think I might do that, use the same 2mm plate, just do the same again. There we go. So I've got the pilot holes through them both, and obviously the holes started on each one there. They go together, they go together. I ground around the edges with them both clamped together, so they should be the same, and that'll just look a lot nicer when I go to put it on. There we go. Ready to be welded. I marked out the wrong side, but yeah, either way, just need to clean up that face and we're good to go. Not the prettiest of welding, but I guarantee they are not fucking coming off. I ran it hot for a purpose because obviously the bolts are a lot thicker than the plate. I just wanted to get the heat in the bolt to then obviously flow into the plate itself. The bolts that I've put in are going to be scrapped now because they've had a heat cycle and they've probably stretched the fucking life out of them. But they're in. I'm going to let them cool down and come back to that another day. But yeah, happy with that. And then we can just, like I say, just do some little 5mm holes around the edge of these plates, not the top ones, the back ones, and then they'll get spot welded to the car and then seam welded all the way around. So yeah, we're getting there. I think that'll do. So like I said, I was going to do just spot weld around here, get it attached to the face, the biggest part of the metal on the inside of the chassis, and then just stitch weld it all the way around and keep it intact. I did knock it back every so often just because obviously it flexed out and everything, but I did clamp it in certain places. So I'm going to let that cool down, hopefully not hearing pings, and now I'm going to move on to that side. Job's a fish. All nice and tidied up. I'll get the finger grinder down the back once I've got a few more belts. The belts that I've got are just fucking tearing to bits for some reason, but yeah, that's that side done, and that's that side done. Like I said, I'll get the finger grinder out and just take the sharp bits off this. I can't quite get the grinder in. Yeah, so now that's done, we'll bolt the plate back up, make sure there's no deviation in either side, which I don't think there should be, and then we need to kind of figure out how we're going to attach that to the front end while keeping it in line with the bumper and where it needs to go down here as well. So getting there, but it's fucking cold. So the only one I'm going to have to rechase the thread is that one there. It just wants to just wants to thread, so I'll chase that thread out, and then we'll get that bolt in, and then I'm going to put all of the support on across the front end, get that back on, and then just start eyeing up where I'm going to need that bar. I've got a good idea where it goes anyway. However, on these, the joining pipe may have to just come higher or lower depending on where it sits in the bumper. And we might need to angle it maybe to get it to sit where it needs to sit. So I'll get all that built now and then we'll have a look. So I think the first thing I'm going to need to do is just kind of put the bar on, and I'm going to cable tie it to this just up a bit, and leave a bit of slack in it, and just see how far it comes round, and then cut them shorter, because at the moment they stick out too far, and then look at how long I need. So I'm going to measure off the front of this. Once I've got everything centered up, I'm going to measure off the front of, I might measure off the front of that actually, because that is the front of the plate there, and measure that distance, and then obviously that's the front of the bar, needs to come as close as it can to this. So yeah, let me get it all centered up. I'll get some numbers down, make things equal, and then come back to you. So I've got it all lined up, and I measured from the center point on this chassis leg, which is right there. There's a hole that points to the center point, and I'll show you it in a bit. But essentially it's 65 centimeters from there. 165 mil, sorry, 16.5 centimeters from there to there. So about a banana's width. Measured exactly the same there. So I know that's kind of the distance I'm going to need. So yeah, happy with that. Again, just kind of sit there, 165. And I think what that'll do is just let the bumper sit on it. We can always take it back a little bit if we need to. But that's equal both sides. So I'm going to pull the bumper off and now get the actual roll bar in its place and space it out, and then we'll see how it looks. So that's pretty much how it's going to go. Obviously none of this pipe isn't even welded in, it's not attached, but so I've just done it over length, obviously, because I need to cut a notch out. But I think that's the kind of angle I'm going to want. So on both sides, on both sides, I'm going to aim for the top of this to be at the top of that square hole. So the top of this bar to be the top of that square hole. So obviously this is too long, this pipe is too long at the moment. Essentially it wants to come back, let me squeeze that up a bit. It wants to be about there in total, so not far off being flush, so you don't see any gap behind the pipe really. And the same kind of that side, you shouldn't be able to see any pipe, any daylight through it if you look down from the top. Fucking hell, it's dusty. So yeah, I've just cut these up. What I'll do is I'll notch them, and then I will start working it back until I'm happy with the distance, and then I'll probably just tack it in and go, right, that's about right there. Do the other side, that's about right there, and then go from there. So yeah. So this is with the bar just tacked in. You can just see it just underneath there. If I try and focus on it, it's only tacked in. I think I need to try and get it a little bit higher on the welds, where the bar sits, and a little bit the bar needs to shift over that way, just a small, like about 5 mil. But there you can see the bar lock coming around, and the reason why I say just 5 mil is we're just off this. So I'm going to try and break this tack on this end, pull this up and just smidge it along just a teeny weeny little bit and see how we get on. But that is exactly where I want to be. Yeah, I'm really happy with this, actually. There we go. She's all welded up. I just need to give it a wipe down with some like acetone or some brake cleaner, just to clean it up because it's covered in grease and all kind of shit. But it fits very, very well, and the bumper sits perfectly, like literal minimal movement in the bumper, which is fantastic, 'cause it means then when I get the aero catches on, and there's going to be one around there, one around there, and then one that goes in the side, each side, to hold the bumper on, it'll be just minimal movement to get it actually centered. It's not far off and at the right height. So I'm like I say, I'm just going to clean this up. I've got the iPad ready. I'm going to watch some YouTube, probably some JizzFab or Rusky, and get that painted. So there you go. A day after it's dried, it just looks like a shit gloss black. The paint isn't great, and not be disrespectful to you guys, but yeah, it's got some bristles in it, and it's got a few dry spots in it, but it's just a coat of paint, it's not show. However, that's that done. It's still a bit tacky in places, so I've just put it on those stands to dry at the moment. And yeah, we're just waiting for the pop latches to come so I can fit them to the car and then get all that done, and then that is done. And then we need to repair the front bumper because the bumper is not in one piece. We've got the clips on the side and on the front, all the way around. And as you can see, the actual bumper sits really nicely. And seriously, it doesn't fucking move. And that was the whole idea, is it doesn't fucking move. So yeah, really happy with that. And that is the front crash bar bumper support, ready for the new season.